Now we're going to take a look at some of the macros in the standard library now that we can kind of read them. And before doing that, there's one thing I want to show you, which is that a macro can actually call itself. So, and even when you're declaring it, you can call it inside the macro that you're declaring at this moment, which is pretty weird, but you can do it. So, you see that in the standard library a lot actually. So here is this macro we put together. It's called my macro, and if you give it nothing, it's going to say let's print this. And if you give it one expression, then it's going to call my macro, going to call itself, and give it nothing. And then over here, if we have multiple expressions separated by comma, 0 or more, then it's going to do the same thing. It'll call my macro. So actually all of this random stuff we're giving it, it's just going to do the same thing. It's going to call itself and give itself nothing, and when it gets nothing, it'll match here, and then it's going to just print this out. So that is a macro calling itself, and debug is another example of a macro that calls itself. And if you look at the source, we can start to understand how it works now that we can read it. So if it gets nothing, then it's going to go to create eprint line. And by the way, crate is just the name of the crate where the macro is. You can see it there, $crate. And then it brings in the eprint line macro, and this is nothing weird. This is just regular printing, with the brackets, and this doesn't mean anything. It's just this is just what we're printing out. And then it gives the file name, and it gives the line name, and then the user gets a nice printout. And then over here, if it has expression, and also this, and what this means is the question mark means 0 or 1 occurrences of something, and this occurrences of what? It's occurrences of commas. So that is so that you can take let's see, print something out with debug, and if you have like an 8 with a comma, then it's going to ignore the comma thanks to that. So that's going to be fine. But you can see if you put in a second comma, it's going to say, hey, I don't have any rules for this. I don't know what the second comma is about. And that's because the rules say that that there's, it's this question mark here. So the rule is that if there's 0 commas or 1 comma, it's going to do this, and otherwise it'll get confused. And so it takes this this thing called val, this expression, and then it does this match here, and it says, hey, we're doing this match on purpose. And okay, that's fine. And then it does this eprint line, and it stringifies some things, and we saw stringify last video, so that's good. And then down here, if there's multiple expressions, then as well as possibly a comma at the end, 0 or 1, then it's going to call debug. So it's going to call itself with the value every time, and then it's you'll get multiple things to print out. So that's debug. The next one is format, and format's kind of funny because so you can see this it takes in some multiple token trees, so multiple anythings. And if you look at the macro, it only does one thing. So it brings in this thing, this format macro, and so it calls format, and then it calls this other macro inside here called Formatargs. And then that makes you wonder, what is Formatargs? So you go to Formatargs, and then it says Formatargs is used to make a string literal. Okay, let's see how that works. And then it says compiler built in. And so you see that a lot. Sometimes you'll follow a macro and it'll say compiler built in, and okay, I guess it just the compiler takes over. So all you can see is that it'll take in this kind of single expression or it'll take in an expression and multiple token trees, 0 or more. But then after that, it just compiler magics the thing to send you back a string literal. So that'll happen a lot. Same thing for to do. Like if you look at to do, this one is nice and simple. This is if you have a function that is not ready but you want to compile anyway, then you put in a to do, and you're not supposed to actually call to do because to do is going to call panic, and it writes this not yet implemented, and if you have some arguments there, it's going to format them. And then so the next question is how does panic work? And you go to panic, and panic is it's compiler built in. So that's what panic does, and I guess that's why panic lets it compile, because otherwise it wouldn't make sense to have some special way to just make things compile unless you have this compiler built in way to do it. So so that's interesting. And then after that is what else? Print line. Where did print line go? Print line. There we go. Print line. So if you look at that, our best friend, print line, it calls up print and adds a new line. And if there's more stuff there, then it calls up this print function, and it passes in Formatargs NL, and that means Formatargs new line. And then so that's there's this print function here, and I did some searching, and there's this this page actually shows you what it does if you're actually curious, and I'm not curious enough to take a close look at that, but the print function, the underscore print function, it does a bunch of what does it do? It does a match, and then it does some goes to standard out. We're going to look at standard out, standard in and standard out in a few videos, and does some borrows, and then if there's an error, then it fails. But anyway, so that is a few looking at a few macros, and hopefully you find them at least easy to read now. And I'll just finish it off with a quote from my favorite book, which is Programming Rust, and they have a chapter on macros too, and then at the end it says, perhaps having read all of this, you've decided that you hate macros, and maybe you hate macros too, but hopefully you can at least read them if you get curious about what makes them up. But of course, the whole point of a macro is that they should be easy for the end user. All sorts of crazy magic on the inside, and we don't actually have to think about them. That's exactly what a macro is. It does all the hard work for you. But now that we can read them, then you'll be able to, if you're curious, maybe copy somebody else's macro and change it a little bit and start to fool around with it yourself if you get tempted. And so there you go. That is some basics, and there's a lot more to learn about them if you want to build your own. There's a little book of macros, I think is the name, which is the place to go if you really want to get into in-depth macro learning. So there you go. And that was macros.